in these times. When news of the SCOTUS leak broke, our response at JCRC was never in question. We would be united with our members and allies in our longstanding commitment to protect access to abortion. I want to thank the Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Action and the National Council for Jewish Women Massachusetts chapter for your collaborative partnership, not only for tonight's event, but for continuing to do the necessary and urgent work to make the world that we want to live in. When we organize collectively, we are strengthened, and we look forward to continuing to expand this space. We know this fight will be long, and while abortion access is at stake today, it is inextricably linked to fundamental rights that affect every member of our community. We come together with the shared understanding that our Jewish approach to this matter is built on thousands of years of Jewish law and tradition. And while it may be impossible to articulate the nuances of those thousands of years of tradition in a single sentence, suffice to say that we value the existing and actual life of a person who is carrying a fetus, and we must protect this person's access to a medical procedure. It is this tradition and perspective that informs the overwhelming majority of American Jews in our support for reproductive freedom and the rights protected by Roe. This is not to suggest that the United States ought to be governed by Jewish or by any religious tradition. Our nation should be striving toward a society governed by humanistic and universal principles. Our failure to do so will result in the denial of rights for all Americans, genuine harm for many, and in this case, a severe limitation on the ability of minority communities to live fully in America in accordance with our own traditions. It is in this spirit that we convene here today to hear about how we can come together and take action. And now I am pleased to turn this over to my colleague, Cindy Rowe, Executive Director of JALSA. Cindy?
Thank you so much. Abortion rights are healthcare rights, and a person who has the ability to become pregnant is the person who should be making healthcare decisions about that pregnancy, not the government, and most certainly not a US Supreme Court judge. And tonight we are very deliberately using the word abortion because the right to abortion is what is on the line, and we are in danger of losing that right across the country. 26 states are either certain or likely to ban abortion if Roe is overturned. And if federal law is changed, access to abortion could be threatened in every state, even in Massachusetts. So let us be clear that this is a matter of religious freedom. In this country, we are entitled to live our lives according to our own personal religious values. And if the right to abortion is taken away, we as Jews will no longer have that ability. So together we have work to do here in our state to protect our residents and to protect people who may travel here for abortion care and to protect the practitioners who deliver that care. We have to resist attempts to take away our rights on the federal level. In partnership with all of you on this call and with our allies in the abortion rights movement, we will not rest until this right is secured. I now have the pleasure of introducing Rabbi Laura Abrasley, who has been the senior rabbi at Temple Shalom in Newton since 2015. Rabbi Abrasley grew up in Texas, but I met her when she was the youth educator at Temple Israel here in Boston. She was ordained in 2013 from HUC JIR and is dedicated to the pursuit of social justice and to the repair of the world, combined with her deep lifelong study of Torah and Jewish learning. Rabbi Abrasley.
Thank you, Cindy. In the summer of 2019, I testified before the state legislature's Joint Committee on the Judiciary in support of the Roe Act, legislation to remove obstacles and expand abortion access in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I opened with these words, and I quote, "I come before you today to share both my professional and personal understanding about the importance of safe, legal, and accessible abortion and the urgent need to remove existing barriers to this care. I come as a Jewish person of faith," unquote. I feel strongly that my words on that day still ring true, and reproductive justice, in particular access to safe, legal, and accessible abortion, is a Jewish issue. Judaism's teachings around this issue are remarkably clear, even as they are contained in a tradition that encourages healthy debate. The belief is widely held in Jewish commentary that a fetus is regarded as part of the mother until birth. Jewish law, interpreted over the centuries, puts the life and well-being of a pregnant person as paramount. Those who are pregnant are commanded to care first for their own health and well-being. To put it succinctly, Jewish law allows for abortion, particularly in cases where a person's life is threatened. In contemporary understanding of this issue, this interpretation extends to include abortion as an appropriate decision when a person's mental health, sanity, or even self-esteem could also be at risk. Additionally, I believe that Jewish understanding supports laws that allow for safe and legal abortion because of our long-standing tradition of embracing a concept called machloket l'shem shamayim, the value of divergent opinions within a community. We are taught to value another person's perspective, and that each individual must have the right to make a decision that makes the most sense for them. The reform movement of Judaism, of which I am a part, has affirmed that for decades a person's right to choose. The difficult decision about whether or not to seek an abortion is one that each person must decide for themselves in consultation with their doctor, their partner if appropriate, and their own understanding of their faith tradition. Judaism teaches that this is not a decision that can be decided for someone by others. When David Albright of JALSA asked me to offer this opening frame, he shared a few questions I could possibly address. The last question he gave me is the reason we are all here tonight. What can people of faith who believe in choice do to address this challenge to our fundamental reproductive rights? I do not have enough hubris to suggest what all people of faith can do to address this issue. But as I said at the beginning, I come to you as a Jewish person of faith, and I know so many of you do as well. My faith teaches that the fundamental Jewish values support safe, legal, and accessible abortion. My faith teaches to value the reality that there are divergent opinions about this issue, but insists I preserve a person's right to make decisions for themselves with their understanding of their faith tradition, not mine. And my faith teaches me to use my voice and my power and my privilege to pursue justice in the world, in this instance, comprehensive reproductive rights that includes access to safe, legal abortions. Our work as Jews is to tikkun olam, to help fix the brokenness that exists in our world. Judaism teaches us to help the needy, lift up the fallen, make sure that every individual has access to food, shelter, education, and comprehensive healthcare. It also means that we must fight against those who want to ban or restrict safe, legal abortion. I fear it will not be an easy fight. There are strong opinions and strong words and lots of black and white thinking. But for better or worse, I'm an eternal optimist, especially when I join together with people who support organizations like JALSA, JCRC, and NCJW. Working together, grounded in our Jewish faith, we can make a decision and we can make a difference, a powerful one, and I'm eager to get started. Thank you for inviting me to be with you. I look forward to our conversation tonight and joining in the important work to follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Brazeley. It's an honor to be sharing this program with you. While we at JCRC are a nonpartisan organization, we know that we are very fortunate to have 2 US senators here in Massachusetts who are unwavering, both in their words and in their actions, to protect abortion. Both Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Ed Markey have been clear. We must protect a woman's right to have an abortion, and we must make that a federal law. Both of our senators are on record in voting in favor of the Women's Health Protection Act. We could not be more proud to have persistent and focused champions fighting alongside all of us. We are honored that Senator Markey is here with us tonight and grateful to him for his continued voice in this critical moment. Welcome, Senator Markey. We can't hear you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Gotcha.
I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak alongside my wonderful colleague, Senator Warren. Thank you, Jeremy, for that introduction. I also want to thank Faye Ruth Fisher and the rest of your team at the Jewish Community Relations Council. I want to thank Cindy Rowe and her team at the Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Action. Of course, thank you to Lara and those at the National Council for Jewish Women. I know that Rebecca Hart-Holder is on, just so many other great leaders on this issue. And as we gather here today, our country is facing a dangerous incursion on basic rights. An illegitimate far-right majority on the Supreme Court is poised to overturn Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey and take away the right to a legal, safe abortion. It's anti-choice, it's anti-woman, it's anti-health, but for the conservative right, it's pro-farmer. They have always wanted to roll back Roe versus Wade, to criminalize abortion, to control pregnant people and their bodies, to strangle access to care. Even in the wake of the tragic loss of dozens of lives in mass shootings from Texas to New York, they won't ban assault weapons, but they'll ban abortion. They won't ban election interference, but they'll ban abortion. Every person should be free to make decisions about their own bodies without government interference. We don't need a ban on your bodies. And unbelievably, right now, 28 states are poised to ban abortion outright. Of those states, 13 have already put trigger bans in place, which would activate laws that would ban abortion automatically if and when the Supreme Court finalizes their decision on Roe versus Wade. These bans are rooted in racism, classism, homophobia, misogyny, and patriarchy. The communities hardest hit will be our most marginalized. Communities of color, LGBTQ people, people with low incomes, and those in rural America. These bans would make getting an abortion a crime and performing an abortion grounds for imprisonment. Our job is to make sure that abortion access is available for anyone who has decided to exercise their rights, regardless of geography, insurance coverage, age, or income. Abortion is healthcare, and healthcare is a human right. My wife, Dr. Susan Blumenthal, she was in charge of all women's health for the federal government during the Clinton administration. And she tells me that the work which you are doing is tikkun olam. It is tzedakah. And we've got a big fight ahead, but we cannot let this threat from the far-right justices on the Supreme Court go unanswered. We know what we have to do. First, we must abolish the filibuster. It's allowing for minority rule that doesn't reflect the will of the voters, and it's destroying our democracy. Massachusetts has 2 votes on the floor of the United States Senate, and Senator Elizabeth Warren and I voted for the protection of a right to choose just 3 weeks ago, and the Republicans just said no. Second, we must immediately pass federal legislation that protects the right to an abortion, that lifts dangerous and discriminatory bans, and that removes unnecessary limits on reproductive freedom. Roe v. Wade must be the law of the land. We have to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, but we're gonna have to go out and work in order to accomplish that goal. And third, we have to pass my bill, the Judiciary Act, to expand the Supreme Court by 4 seats to reclaim what the Republicans stole. The 2 seats that the Republicans, Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, stole, so that we can begin to restore the balance to our highest court. And we just can't agonize, we have to organize. Mitch McConnell said that if Republicans gain control of the Senate, they would consider a nationwide ban on abortion. We just can't sit by and wait for the worst to happen. Expanding the court isn't only a position of principle anymore, it's now a matter of practical need. We do not have the luxury of considering if partisan rulings will happen, it's when they will happen. They're going to make these decisions on Roe, on same-sex marriage, on environmental protection, on birth control. They're going to be striking down with this new majority that they've stolen, gun safety laws all across the country. They'll be striking them down, even as we see the absolute catastrophes in community after community that are being committed. And it's a new Supreme Court that is going to side with the NRA, because we know that this is not going to stop. We know the extremist right wing will not stop, but neither will we. We will pursue justice. And I say to you, the activists and organizers leading the charge to protect the right to abortion, join me in demanding 4 more seats. We just cannot and will not allow this Supreme Court abortion ruling to be the last word. We will fight in Congress, in the courts, and in the streets. Now is the time. You are the people. No abortion bans. Not now, not ever. We must rise up, meet this moment with everything we have. Thank you for using your values as your fuel in this fight for abortion justice. I stand with you in a partnership in this fight. Failure is not an option. We have to win. Thank you all so much for everything that you are doing.
Thank you, Senator Markey, for those rousing words, for your continued partnership and the work you are doing on this issue. It's wonderful to have a champion like you in Washington on this. It's also wonderful to have a champion like Senator Warren. And although Senator Warren could not be with us in person tonight, we're grateful to her for sharing some remarks to us via video.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to join you today. I'm so sorry that we can't be together in person, but I'm glad to be able at least to have a chance to visit by video. For nearly 50 years, Roe versus Wade has protected the right to a safe legal abortion. I don't have to tell you all this, but now we're up against an extremist Supreme Court that is poised to overturn nearly 50 years of precedent and strip away women's constitutional right to an abortion. We are here because Republican politicians have spent decades plotting for this moment, plotting for the opportunity to force their extremist, unpopular agenda on the whole country. If Roe is overturned, abortion bans will fall hardest on the most vulnerable among us, on low-income women, on women of color, on women in rural communities. But make no mistake, this decision will affect every woman and every family in America. If Republicans move forward with their plans to pass a nationwide ban on abortions, as they have already said they plan to do, then no one will be safe. Here's just one example of what that could look like. I led a letter this week signed by over a dozen of my colleagues, calling out data broker companies for their disturbing practice of selling the cell phone location data of women visiting abortion clinics. Left unchecked, these practices would allow anyone with a credit card to buy the location data of women seeking abortion services, including women who cross state lines, and to use that information potentially to prosecute or to target those women. These practices are deeply disturbing, and they risk the safety of everyone seeking access to care. This is a 5-alarm fire, and Democrats need to use every tool possible to protect a woman's right to choose. Now, we'll keep fighting here in Congress to do that through legislation. The Biden administration will do its part through executive action, and elected officials across the country will step up to fight this at the local and state level. But here's what's crucial. We must keep making our voices heard, loud and clear, because we cannot go back. Not now, not ever.
Wow, this has been already a very exciting event. I can't, the things that I'm hearing is getting me all getting ready to start taking some action. I'm here as a state policy advocate for the National Council of Jewish Women in Massachusetts. My name is Lara Crawford. It's my pleasure to introduce Simone Bailey, who joins us from Indiana, where she is in her second year of nursing school at the University of Indiana. She also spends her time volunteering at the Hoosier Abortion Fund, where she works to bring resources to those who need abortion access. She comes to us tonight as a storyteller through the Advocates for Youth, an organization that since 1980 has worked with young leaders on the pressing issues affecting their lives. It's my pleasure, and please join me in introducing Simone.
Hi guys, so nice to be here tonight. I apologize for my background. I am down the street from my job. I just ran home real quick because I just felt this was really important to be here and speak today. So my name is Simone Bailey. I'm a nursing student. I'm an Abortion Out Loud activist with Advocates for Youth, and I am a We Testify abortion storyteller. Can you guys see me? Can you guys see me now?
We can see you now.
Yep. Okay. Can you still see me?
Nope.
1 second. Sorry. It's probably my connection. I'm just gonna move along. I'm so sorry. I've been sharing my abortion story for the last 4 years. Starting here in Indiana at my hometown with a local abortion fundraiser, the Hoosier Abortion Fund, which I am on the board of planning that now, to being here today and speaking to you guys. I was once a young person facing hardship at the moment that I needed an abortion. I didn't have any money. I had no car. I couldn't tell my family. And I was relying on my partner at the time, who was very abusive to me. And due to the mandatory waiting periods and all the other obstacles I was facing, I nearly missed my window to get my abortion. So back in 2016, when I actually had my abortion, I was a freshman in college. I was working part-time in a warehouse. Like I said, I didn't have a car. I was living with my grandmother, who was blind. So I was also a caretaker, all of that on top of being, freshly 18. And I was, like I said, depending on this guy to get around. And I'd often give most of my paycheck to him just because he was doing so much for me. And I felt like that was what I needed to do. When I found out I was pregnant, I knew what I wanted to do immediately. By chance, I was able to convince him that this was the best thing to do, because I knew otherwise, I probably, for my own safety, I would have been forced to carry the pregnancy. But I was able to convince my ex at the time that we shouldn't do this right now. I was underage when our relationship started. It would be it would be a lot of drama, and my family would probably have tried to take legal action against him. When it came time for me to get my first appointment, though, everything kind of changed. He had refused to help me pay. He would only drop me off at my appointment and leave. So I was having to find another way home, and I wasn't able to call family or anything. So it was just, I was completely at his mercy. So a combination of the waiting periods in Indiana, trying to get funding, which my abortion costs $600, and that's one paycheck for me at the time, and not having any transportation, it put me right at the cutoff for a surgical abortion when I finally got it. My initial appointment, I was 5 weeks. By the time I actually got in to get my abortion, I was 11 weeks and 3 days. And the cutoff for surgical abortions in Indiana is 12 weeks. So it took me 6 weeks to get done what I could have got done in about an hour, had not the mandatory waiting periods been in place and the counseling appointments that they require here. But I say all this to say that my situation is not unique. A lot of people have similar circumstances that I went through. But what we can do today, and what I've been doing in the last 4 years since I kind of got really passionate about making sure that people don't have, it's not a life-changing decision for people to get an abortion, because it shouldn't be. It's healthcare, it should be accessible. But what we can do is we can get involved in practical support. So clinic escorting groups, volunteering for transporting patients to and from their appointments, even if that is, outside of state lines. If you have the means to do that, do that. Listening to people around you, your loved ones, and the people in your community. Use the resources that you see when you come to these events and you get on these Zoom meetings. There's always a wealth of resources. And, from people like me, even, if you guys want to reach out to me, I can put my email address in the chat box, but just ask around. And when you come to these things, like, take the resources and share that knowledge with people. And don't be discouraged by what's happening with Roe. Because my grandma had this conversation with me long before Roe. We had to take care of each other. Abortions have been happening for thousands of years, and it's been in our hands for a long time. And we're not gonna just sit back and let them, take this away from us and make us feel helpless. So that's what I have to share with you guys today. I'm so honored for you to have had me on here. I spoke in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, and it's really an honor, and I feel very happy that so many people are so riled up about this and willing to start helping out.
Thank you. Thank you, Simone. That was wonderful to hear. It brings the whole context back to why we're here, which is to really work with and help people. It's not just about elected officials. Sorry, elected officials. Yeah. It's my pleasure to introduce Ayanna Presley. She's she's a representative of the 7th District in Massachusetts. She's chair of the Pro-Choice Caucus and chair of the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force. She's introduced criminal justice reform for decriminalizing consensual sex work. She's also introduced Healthy Mommies Act. She was one of the lead sponsors of the Women's Health Protection Act to guarantee equal access to abortion care everywhere. She has been a champion all her life, and please help me in welcoming her tonight.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. I think Simone may have had to return to work, but I just wanted to take a moment just to hold space for Simone and to thank her for sharing her story. We know that 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. And I will say, as a Black woman, given the history of medical apartheid against the bodies of the most marginalized, disabled, Indigenous, Black women, medical experimentation, forced sterilization, and a Black maternal morbidity crisis where Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth. It is incredibly frightening that we could find ourselves in a situation of forced birth. And it is a bitter pill to swallow that the people, the men who claim to care about the preservation of civil liberties seek to deny us the very freedom and autonomy of our own bodies. And so these are challenging times, but I find great restoration and resolve and healing in the spaces like the ones that you have created tonight. And Simone, I thank you so much for sharing your story, as Laura said, to put a face on this. And you said it's not just about elected officials. I actually don't ever think it's about elected officials. You know, Massachusetts has an extraordinary delegation, but that has everything to do with the strength of the incredible movement builders and community builders that we have who are joining us this evening. And so first and foremost, I just want to thank all the partners who made tonight possible. Thank you to the Jewish Community Relations Council. Thank you to the Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Action and the Nation Council for Jewish Women Massachusetts for bringing us all together this evening. Truly, you are a balm for a very weary soul. And I'm grateful for your intention, for your commitment to be intersectional justice seekers. And that is really what is necessary in this moment of so many layered crises. And I will always bet on the people and on the movement. And so I do believe that we will ultimately be victorious here in protecting healthcare, and abortion care is healthcare. And I want to say to Simone and the other Simones out there that there is no shame in your healthcare choice. Again, 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. So these are our loved ones, our neighbors, our coworkers, people whom we worship with. So there is no shame. There is no shame in your healthcare choice. The only shame is that there are those working diligently, forces at work, to deny you that right, the right to bodily autonomy, the right to make healthcare decisions with your doctor and your family, the right to privacy. And before I go any further, let me just make it clear emphatically to anyone who's a part of this convening tonight, who may already have an appointment scheduled, keep it. If you have already scheduled an appointment for abortion care, keep it. If you need care, seek it. Roe is still the law of the land. And there is a lot of mis and disinformation out there. So it's really important that we continue to reiterate that to people. This was a leaked draft ruling, but Roe is still the law of the land. So if you have an appointment, keep it. And if you need care, seek it. And again, I just want to say thank you to all the organizers in the reproductive justice movement who have been my partners on the front lines of this battle for many decades, and who have been sounding the alarm for decades, fearful that a day like this would come. We have seen how state legislatures across the country were slowly chipping away at the protections set in Roe year after year through harmful state abortion bans. And of course, we knew that those bans would not stop people from seeking abortion care. It just means that we're putting safe, legal abortion care out of reach for people, and whom that will harm are our most marginalized. Our disabled neighbors, our LGBTQ neighbors, low income people, and communities of color. And so this is quite literally a matter of life and death. When I consider the fact that as a Boston City Councilor, I worked very closely with my chief of staff at the time, Jessica Taubner, and Barbara Edelin, the widow of Dr. Ken Edelin, to have a square dedicated to him in the South End. Ken Edelin, for those of you who don't know, was a Black doctor who was convicted of manslaughter in the 1970s for performing abortions. And so the fact that we could find ourselves in a situation where those seeking abortion are criminalized, those who help those seeking abortions are criminalized, and those who provide abortion care are criminalized. This is already happening in some states, Texas namely. And so that's why we have to continue to fight, continue to organize, to do that in a way that is inclusive and intersectional, and do everything possible. We need to make abortion care accessible to all who need care. We need to invest in reproductive health care as the necessary, what I would characterize, public health infrastructure that it is. And we need Massachusetts to be a safe haven to all those residing within our Commonwealth who are in need of care, and those from outside of our state who are in need of care. So every tool must be on the table in this moment. We cannot allow our weariness to paralyze us, because there's simply too much at stake. I recently met with the White House Gender Equity Council to push this administration to use the full power of the presidency to protect abortion rights and access. We should not be waiting until a final ruling is made. We need to protect abortion care as the fundamental human right that it is today and every day, because abortion care is health care. So I'm pushing for this administration to do everything they can to destigmatize abortion care, to protect access to medication abortion, which is safe, and to push back against any and all efforts to criminalize those seeking or providing abortion care. And I'm also taking steps to ensure that we don't see access to contraception being denied or stripped. So I haven't let up, and I know you won't either. And again, the fight in Congress isn't finished either. I was furious to see the Senate fail to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. I'm a proud co-lead in the House, which passed that bill out of our chamber that would enshrine the human right to abortion care in federal law, and also ban the introduction of harmful draconian state bans like what we've seen in Texas and Mississippi. And of course, the House passed this bill months ago because we knew that it was possible that this far-right majority of the Supreme Court could take direct aim at abortion care. And here we are, these obstructionists in the Supreme Court who continue in this far-right imbalanced court to obstruct the will of the people. A majority of Americans support Roe v. Wade and don't want it overturned. More of the same with the Supreme Court. They did this with voting rights, with housing rights, and now with reproductive freedom and justice and abortion care. So now every senator, including Republicans who claim to support Roe v. Wade, they've been put on the record showing where they stand. And so now that they've been put on record, I hope that they'll also be put on notice and they'll be held accountable. But we all can, and we must continue to do our part. We must continue to put pressure on this Senate to take action to abolish the filibuster so we can protect our basic human rights. And if you're able, I need you to take action to protect access to abortion today and consider supporting your local abortion fund. And you can find out more about how to do that at www.abortionfunds.org to get involved. Again, abortion funds are essential to ensuring that everyone anywhere can access safe, dignified, affordable care. These are scary times. But again, I find comfort and balm and resolve and restoration in this movement and in this fight, because I know that we're in it together. And I want to thank the Jewish community specifically. Thank you for being consistent and diligent in this fight. For your organizations who have been at the forefront of this, you understand that cruel attempts to deny folks the care they need impacts the most marginalized the hardest. You seek with intention to build bridges rooted in faith and focused on the humanity of all of our neighbors. And for that, I am deeply grateful, because our destinies and our freedoms are inextricably tied. And I am so proud to be your Congresswoman, but most of all, to be your sister in solidarity and in the struggle for this and so many other social justice fights.
Thank you, Representative. That was really very heartwarming to know that you're such a champion. And now we're going to move our program to the state level. I'm going to introduce Senator Cynthia Stone Cream of Newton. She's the Senate Majority Leader in the State House. She has always been a leader in abortion care. In the early 2000s, she led the bill to create the safety buffer zone at health clinics. And she continues to this day working hard to keep Massachusetts a leader in abortion care. Please welcome Senator Cream.
Thank you so much. I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud to stand for what I believe is the right and just thing to do. And I'm proud that I represent the people of Massachusetts in the Massachusetts legislature, because we, in a different planet than what we see is happening. We were worried a while ago that there would be an erosion of the Roe Act, of Roe versus Wade. So last session, the legislature passed what's called the Roe Act, which codified the right to reproductive health care in Massachusetts and eliminated several barriers to reproductive health and to abortion. And I have to say that I know there are problems in the federal government, and that's why it's more important that we act. And that's what we did in the Massachusetts legislature. Now, this year, when we became concerned with the leakage of that ruling, which it was dreadful, it scared all of us. So the Senate, the House had already done their budget, but in the budget, the Senate took some actions, which I am really proud of. And it's important that that happened, that the House supports that, and in the conference committee that we get this to pass. But what we did is we put $2 million in funding to improve reproductive health care access, infrastructure, and security. That's huge. That's important for those people that are seeking reproductive health and coming from other places. And we adopted an amendment which implemented several policies. I was proud to be a co-sponsor of that amendment, and included language I had filed creating a statewide standing order for emergency contraceptives at Massachusetts pharmacies. We had previously voted contraceptive health, allowing for contraception, but it wasn't clear what that order would be. So up until this time that we passed our laws, people could not get a contraceptive, the right contraception, without going to their doctor, or if they didn't go to the doctor, it wouldn't be covered, and they would have to pay the costs in their insurance company. And there was some question about whether there would be a need to continue to go to the doctor. With a statewide pharmaceutical bill with a statewide standing order, that is like writing a script. That script is there. All pharmacists are able to provide a contraception without the need for someone to go to a doctor, wait until they get a prescription, or wait until they see their doctor. All pharmacies will be giving the contraception. That was part of the bill. But even better was the bigger part of the bill. So the concern we have is that several states are seeking to limit access to, or altogether ban, reproductive health and gender affirming health care. And that was evidence in the decision that got leaked. So what that means is it's very concerning to us. There seems to be a sense of, there's an urgency. When what's happening is these laws that are being passed, they're like bounty style provisions that allow a resident of a state, say Texas or Oklahoma, where reproductive care is limited, to bring a civil suit or private right of action against someone in our state who provides or abets a resident of one of those states such care, which in Massachusetts is legal. So think of that. Another state is trying to tell us that we can't perform or do the job that is legal and is part of our Constitution. And that is reproductive health as well. And so we're faced with a situation that threatens the right of law-abiding residents in Massachusetts from engaging in the activities that are legal. That is egregious, and it's an attack on our system. We are not going to be held hostage to what is happening in another state. So the amendment that was passed in the Senate seeks to block other states from interfering with a legally protected healthcare activity in Massachusetts. In other words, it protects those who provide and assist in providing reproductive and gender affirming healthcare services, along with the patients that are seeking their critical care in Massachusetts. So it isn't just reproductive health care. We've seen these states that are also prohibiting other kinds of care, such as gender affirming health care. We combined both of those in the amendment that it did in the Senate. And what it means is that Massachusetts, its laws, regulations, and agencies and institutions are not being prohibited from doing what legally they have the right to do in Massachusetts. Let's be clear. These are all great issues. This is a moving target. We can't be sure that we've actually protected everybody. We're doing what we thought was a good first step, but we're open to continuing that process because we don't know what's the next state to come along, what the next order will be, whether the court will actually do that. But we didn't want to wait. We in the Senate, and I'm proud of Senate President Karen Spilka, we took action, and Senator Cindy Friedman, she and I filed this bill. We took action in Massachusetts to try and protect our people in Massachusetts from doing what they're legally entitled to do. Again, I have to say that this is something that we will be following, and the job isn't done. We need to be vigilant, and we need to see that if we do have to do more, we will. And I want to thank Laura for mentioning the buffer zone, because I chaired the Judiciary Committee when legislation passed to provide a buffer zone around reproductive health clinics. And I wrote an amicus brief to the Supreme Court. And that we did well with that when the legislature took a step. Again, we're happy because we live in Massachusetts, but we cannot close our eyes and say it's not going to affect us, because we have a duty to continue to provide the services here that we always have. And we also have a duty to help women get the reproductive health services that they're entitled to get, as well as the other care that is being prohibited from the cases. So that's where we are in Massachusetts. We're raring to go. If there are other things to do, we're glad to do them. There's a great coalition of people working with us in the legislature, and this is a step that we're taking in the process. So thank you very much for asking us on. And I'm so proud that I don't have to say, maybe we'll do this and maybe we'll do that. I'm proud that our legislature is stepping up to the plate.
Thank you so much, Senator Cream, for being with us and sharing that update on what is happening in the legislature right now. My name is Faye Ruth Fisher. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Boston. I am thrilled and personally privileged to introduce our next speaker, who is one of the smartest people I have ever worked in coalition with. Rebecca Hartholder is the Executive Director of Reproductive Equity Now. Reproductive Equity Now is a leading organization to ensure access to the full spectrum of reproductive health for everyone, regardless of race, age, gender, ability, zip code. Becca helped successfully lead the Roe Coalition, and I feel much more assured by her presence that there are things that we can do beyond Roe in Massachusetts. I know the chat is alive with a lot of questions about how we can take action, which also is deeply reassuring in this moment. So without further ado, I am very pleased to introduce my friend, Becca Hartholder, Executive Director of Reproductive Equity Now.
Thank you, Faye Ruth, for that very kind and generous introduction. And thank you to JALSA and JCRC and NCJW and all the people who worked behind the scenes to bring this event together. I know that it's a lot of work and I deeply appreciate this conversation. I just want to start by saying that this crisis is for decades in the making. The anti-abortion movement began a state-by-state crusade investing in state legislatures to ban abortion and to strip people of their bodily autonomy, not that long after Roe was decided by the High Court. And I want to be clear that for many advocates, the moment of crisis became crystal clear on October 6th, 2018, a date that I won't soon forget, which is the day that Justice Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed to the United States Supreme Court. And I think that was the moment when many advocates across the country really understood in our bones that Roe was in grave danger and that federal constitutional abortion protections were in serious jeopardy. And so we fast forward to today, and the US Supreme Court is poised to decide Dobbs v. Jackson, a case that the court never should have taken, a Mississippi law that bans abortion care after 15 weeks, which is blatantly unconstitutional under Roe. But the draft leaked Dobbs decision, which you've read about, which you heard about this evening, really confirmed our worst fears that not only is the High Court poised to uphold the Mississippi law, but it is poised to overturn Roe. It's a tilted extremist Supreme Court that's preparing to unleash a major healthcare crisis across our country that disproportionately impacts people of color, LGBTQ people, low-income people. It is a truly terrifying step. And you've heard others say, more than half of states in the US are likely to ban or restrict abortion, preventing upwards of 64 million people of reproductive age from accessing critical care. Abortion will become obsolete in broad regions of our country, primarily in the South and Midwest, but I don't want us to forget that even our neighbor to the north, New Hampshire, has recently passed draconian anti-choice laws that impact access and are sending people to Massachusetts for care. Pregnant people are going to be forced to travel from their homes for care if they can afford that travel. And these extremist bans are going to have, as I said before, disproportionate impacts on people of color, LGBTQ people, disabled people, immigrant populations, young people, and they're going to put access to care farther and farther from reach. And all this happens on the backdrop of a country that continues to deny baby formula to our children, to deny paid family medical leave, to deny universal child care. And it's these cycles of poverty and oppression that will become deeper than ever before if Roe falls. So as Congresswoman Presley said earlier, it's very important to say over and over and over again that abortion will remain legal here in Massachusetts, and that regardless of what happens at the High Court, the Massachusetts legislature has taken critical steps to support abortion care here in Massachusetts. But while abortion is legal, access is not guaranteed here. And we in the Commonwealth have to prepare for the cascading impact from other states' abortion bans. I'm sure you've seen this in the Boston Globe, providers are already seeing patients from Texas, where, as you know, there is a 6-week ban. And we have some of the best healthcare infrastructure in the country, so we will continue to be a beacon for access. But we've simply never seen 26 states outlaw a healthcare procedure virtually overnight. So it's hard to predict what the exact impact will be, but there will be an impact and the people of Massachusetts will feel it. So I want to talk about what we can do here in Massachusetts, because it's easy to feel, and certainly I sometimes feel very powerless and angry, and it's important to ground ourselves in what we can do here. So our job in Massachusetts is to expand access and to be unafraid to expand that access. We have to invest in under-resourced providers. We have to lower exorbitant healthcare costs that prevent people from accessing care. And we have to make insurance coverage of abortion care less complicated. We have to think beyond Roe with a coordinated and comprehensive game plan to protect reproductive health care from different angles, including improved access, protecting patients and providers, and education and outreach and research to really understand the scope of abortion access in a post-Dobbs world. So that's why just I think 2 weeks ago, Reproductive Equity Now with our partners at the ACLU of Massachusetts and the Planned Parenthood Advocacy Fund of Massachusetts launched the Massachusetts Beyond Roe agenda. It's a 21-point plan to protect and expand access to the full spectrum of reproductive health care in our Commonwealth. I encourage you to go to massbeyondroe.com today to view the detailed agenda. We've seen already, as Senator Cream said, important progress on the agenda, including both the House and Senate proposing investments in clinic security and infrastructure. The statewide standing order for emergency contraception that Senator Cream spearheaded to make it so that people don't have to jump through hoops to get time-sensitive emergency contraception, and the amendment to protect providers. So it has not become law yet. I anticipate it will in the post-Dobbs landscape, but states like Texas and Missouri are trying to pass laws that would reach into the Commonwealth and try to penalize abortion care providers and the people that work with them from offering lawful abortion care here in the Commonwealth. So penalizing people who provide access to services when patients travel to Massachusetts for care. This is a frightening, on its face, unconstitutional attack on states' rights, which feels like a crazy thing for me to say, quite frankly, because I've never really believed in states' rights, but here we are. You know, and the Senate has taken really important steps to try to protect providers. But I just wanted to tell a story about a provider that I was talking to as we were working through the amendment. And I was kind of working through the prongs of the amendment, and one of them was about extradition, right? So making sure that Massachusetts providers are not forcibly sent to another state to face a civil or criminal penalty based on the lawful provision of healthcare here. And she said, well, how could they get me? They could never get me. And I said, well, of course they could. If you have a layover in Dallas, they'll track you and they'll arrest you. And she said, well, but the Congress of OBGYNs is headquartered in Texas. That's where we take our boards. That's where we have our annual conferences. And I said, you cannot travel to Texas if this law passes. You have to understand how serious this will be. And that Massachusetts is taking steps to protect you, to protect your license, to protect your access to medical malpractice. But we are in uncharted territory with a court that is, quite frankly, out of control from my vantage point. So it's just so incredibly important to understand the risks that abortion providers face and patients face and will continue to face. So what can we do? This is a moment of crisis, and we have to be unafraid to push for abortion access. And it's true that anti-abortion and right-wing extremists have captured the Supreme Court. I don't know how else to understand the attacks they've made on voting rights, the attacks they're poised to make on controlling access to guns, on abortion care. I'm terrified about what they're going to do on contraception and same-sex marriage. But we have something that they don't have, and that is people. 80% of Massachusetts residents, 70% of people nationwide believe that access to abortion is a fundamental right. So we have the power to fight back. So I want to encourage you, and I'll drop a link in the chat, to please go to Mass Beyond Roe, sign up for updates, familiarize yourself with the plan, and start engaging with your state senators and your state legislators. They are so accessible. You can have real conversations with them. You can really talk to them about the importance of supporting this agenda. And I hope you'll take the time to do that, because this fight is a state fight. This is a voter to voter grassroots battle that we only win if we're engaging with the elected officials that represent us. I also want to again reiterate what the Congresswoman said, to please consider donating to abortion funds. You can go to abortionfunds.org. There are 3 funds here in Massachusetts. There's a 4th that's about to be stood up. Funds provide critical critical care, financial care to people seeking abortion care. They give everything from money for housing to transportation to defraying the cost of the procedure itself. And finally, I would ask you, even though I know it is an incredibly frustrating thing to do, to please call the United States Senate and demand that they take action to protect abortion. They have to continue to hear our voices. They have to be able to say that they are getting an overwhelming number of calls from their constituents. So I would ask that you take that action. We have a lot of work to do here in Massachusetts. We are not done. We can become the national leader on access if this Beyond Roe agenda is implemented, and we need your partnership to do that. So thank you for your time this evening, and I am so grateful to be in this fight with all of you.
Thank you all for coming. My name is David Albright. I'm the Legislative Director at JALSA. Thank you to Senator Markey, Senator Cream, Representative Presley, to Becca Hart-Holder. You're gonna see dropped into the chat just in the next couple of minutes 2 links. One is to a Google form that's just an interest form to see what work people might be interested in doing and how we can all collaborate on working together to enact the Beyond Roe agenda in Massachusetts and what other things we might want to do. The second link that you're going to see is a link to an upcoming event for young people. That is going to be a discussion for young people. It's Pints and Policy is what we call it. It's going to be at the Owl's Nest Brewery on the Esplanade on June 16th at 6 p.m. And I believe we will be having someone there from Reproductive Equity Now, and our program and outreach coordinator, Sarah Pincus, will be there to have young people have a discussion about how they can get involved. And if you have any young people in your life, or if you are a young person yourself, you can click on that link. And we would ask you to just fill out that Google form as well to let us know what you're interested in doing and how you'd like to follow up and take action. We'll also be sending out an email to everyone who registered for tonight's call so that you have another chance to fill those things out. And now I'm gonna, right.
So, David, thank you for that. David, thank you for that. And if we have learned anything tonight, it's that we all must take action to preserve the right to abortion. So much depends on us and what we do right now. We often say that it is not up to us to finish the job, but neither can we desist from it. Signing up on that Google form, being on this Zoom tonight, it's just the start of so much more work to come. This is what we are called to do for ourselves, for our people who can become pregnant, for all people who want to live according to their own religious values, and for all people who rely on the right to privacy, to live a life with respect and dignity. To conclude our program tonight, we will hear from Rabbi Tiferet Berenbaum, who is the rabbi for Congregational Learning and Programming at Temple Beth Zion in Brookline. She was ordained from Hebrew College in 2013 and is currently pursuing a doctorate in educational leadership. Rabbi Berenbaum says that the Torah is her guide as we look to navigate the intersections of race, racism, and religion. Please welcome Rabbi Berenbaum to close us out for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. And thank you to JCRC, to JALSA, NCJW, and all the organizations who are part of bringing us together tonight to learn, to stand together in solidarity, and now to pray. And I want to offer just a few words of prayer. O Holy One of blessing, whose presence fills creation, we're so grateful to partner with you in bringing life into this world. We're grateful for the cycles of birth and death which govern our time and our experiences here on this planet. We're grateful to be alive in a time when people who give birth have access to medical care that allows them to birth safely. And we know that this has not always been true for many of us, even in our lifetimes. And we stand here again when that threat, that access, is under a very real threat. Parent of all life, we pray that the hearts of lawmakers are moved to trust in a woman's right to choose, to trust that women and pregnant people, that all people should have the right to govern our own bodies. God, you've commanded us through your servant Moses to choose life, and we have witnessed how abortion has allowed for women to choose their own lives for medical reasons, for personal reasons, for whatever reasons exist, which need only be known between you, Holy One, and the person seeking an abortion. In our Jewish tradition, a fetus is not yet a person until they breathe in nishmat chayim, the breath of life, the soul of life. God, you see from end to end of time, and you know the hearts of all of us. So we pray that our lawmakers come to trust in your sovereignty and your knowledge of our hearts, and trust women and pregnant people to make these difficult, heart-rending decisions. May our earthly lawmakers come to know that you are the Dayan Ha'emet, the true judge. To you only are we all accountable. This is the true meaning of religious freedom. That is our choice. That is our right. Harachaman, God of mercy, we pray for the women who have been hurt by our laws, harassed and bothered, guilted, abandoned, and scared, the older ones and the youngest ones. May you help them discover that they are not alone and that they are choosing life. They are choosing their own lives, which matter, which have value, and that they are loved. Shema Kolenu, hear our voices, divine ear, and open our hearts to the arguments and concerns of those who cannot support abortion. Help us to love them and see them as people who want to serve their God, yet let not our love and understanding dampen our fierce resolve and commitment to justice, access to safe abortion rights. Because we've seen the alternative. We've lost aunties, sisters, friends to unsafe abortions, and we cannot go back to that darkness. We choose light and we choose our lives. As we prayed last year in Washington, D.C., the seat of government in this land, we long for the liberation of our collective body, interdependent and gloriously embodied in our sacredness, our strength, our will toward freedom and thriving for each and all. We long for the liberation of us all together. We long for the liberation of all. May you hear our prayer tonight and every day. May you safeguard Roe versus Wade for us, for our daughters, for our granddaughters, our nieces, students, cousins, and everyone who can get pregnant. Give us the strength to take action. Give us the language and understanding to know that this is a Jewish issue. May we continue to be fueled by the strength of our ancestors who fought for this right for us all now. And may the Commonwealth of Massachusetts continue to be a leader in healthcare access and a beacon for choice. And let us together say, Amen.